I'm Father Alejandro Mendez. I'm a Jesuit Catholic priest. I'm currently teaching at the School of Social Work at Boston College, and I have done a lot of work with immigrant communities, especially working on humanitarian settings along the Mexican trails, with working with all these especially Central American migrants trying to reach the border with the U.S.
Can you tell us what you've seen in the last year, given the fact that you've been down there so frequently?
I would say there are a couple of things. People who move or try to reach the United States, they are really coming from very vulnerable situations. It's poor people, it's people who have no opportunities, and many of them are people who experience high levels of violence. So when these people really say that they are seeking help or seeking or claiming for asylum in another country, it's because they are fleeing real violence. I mean, their family are being killed, they witness certain levels of violence, or sometimes gangs just take over their neighborhoods where they live, and they ask them, I want your house, or I want your girls or your kids, and they have really no other resource but to flee, seeking refuge and help in another place. So a lot of the things that these happen, these people go and seek help as they try to move to Mexico in different casas de migrantes or migrant shelters that are well-known places and along Mexico, migrant trails in Mexico. And these places also offer kind of like basic support, shelter, food, first aid, education. And it's in some way an informal welfare system that allows people to kind of continue their journey. I think these places offer a lot of support based on the spirit of acknowledging that the other one is suffering, acknowledging that the other one is in need of help, seeing them. It's a little bit like the Good Samaritan. They really recognize that the suffering in people's life. So they reach out, they set up these places, and they come. In recent, especially this year, it has been interesting that the policies that are set in place in the United States, like the migration protection protocols, are designed to protect migrants seeking asylum, seeking help or refuge in the United States. But the policy says that they have to wait for their process, they have to wait in Mexico. So they are received in some way or registered in the system in the United States, and then they are returned to Mexico to wait. The challenges of this policy has to do with the fact that sometimes or many times people have to wait long times. It's not that they just wait a couple of weeks in Mexico or 2 or 3 weeks. When I was working in the summer in Ciudad Juarez across El Paso, one of the things that I've noticed was that people were having appointments for October 2020, and I was interviewing them in June 2019. So it's all these long times that they have to wait, and they have to wait in settings that are not designed to help them or to support them for long periods of time.
Can you tell us what do those settings look like? You know, many of our folks have not been there. Can you tell us what do those settings look like? How do they feel? Are there men, women, and children? Who's there, and what is it like?
Sure. A Casa de Migrante would be a basic, I would say a basic shelter. There would be a couple of rooms. Often they will have dormitories for men and women. There would be a dining room. They will have a little bit of offices. We need to emphasize that these Casas de Migrantes are often local efforts. They are not funded by the government, neither the Mexican government nor the American government. These are local efforts that are often attached to the churches, to the Catholic Church or to other churches or denominations that are attuned or sensible to the needs of people. So it's basic. And they are in some way, they emerge out of the experience of the church, or because churches, physical buildings, have facilities that could be made available. Like a classroom could be quickly turned into a dormitory. They could in some way rent toilets or showers or build quickly two showers or toilets. So the infrastructure is very basic. And the problem is that sometimes with this program, hundreds of people or thousands of people are being sent back to wait long periods of time in these places. And as I said, these places are not designed really to hold them. I think the staff and the people who work at these places, the volunteers, many women, we have to say that many women participate in these, and probably I would venture to say that they are the ones who take the lead and they're more sensible to these needs and the more creative ones to provide support and help. Sometimes they just don't have the capacity to respond to an overwhelming number of people and to multiple needs, from emotional needs to basic healthcare needs. To share you one story, for example, I was interviewing at some point in my work, she's a grandmother, and she's from Honduras, and she was relating basically that her son was killed outside of her house. Once this happened, the gang who killed the son threatened her and the family. So she just kind of have a conversation with the daughter-in-law, took off. It took her almost 6 weeks to reach the border, all the way to the border with the United States and Mexico. And this woman, at crossing, because she needed help, encounters the border patrol. She crosses with the daughter-in-law and the two little girls who are her granddaughters. And then in the migration protocol policy, they take the wife of the person who was killed, the son, they take the two girls, but they send this 67 years old woman back to Mexico to a place that she doesn't know what to do. She barely has third grade of education, so she was very scared when I interviewed. She was confused, very sad. And I mean, these people are facing these challenges, and I interviewed her in July, and then the interview was for April 2020. So it was this policy that in some ways asking people to do the impossible. They have no knowledge of what is the process, of how to navigate the process, or what to do. They receive documents that they don't understand because they are in English. Of course, English is not their first language. So they have to deal with all these things. And in terms of the shelters and the humanitarian response, I will say, I mean, people do the best they can. They do the best they can. They offer the services, but sometimes, we have to say, the services sometimes do not meet all the needs that people have. And yes, it's not lack of desire. It's not that they don't want to have the capacity. It's just that probably the policy or the protocol is punishing both. It's punishing the people who are being subject to the program, and it in some way creates an effect on the people that are responding humanely to this situation, and also the communities along the border, because it puts on a strain on resources, on capacities, and those type of things. It's about the other. It's about the neighbor. I mean, I would say the question that needs to resonate with us is like, who is our neighbor? And our neighbor is the one who suffers, the one who is ostracized, the one who is marginalized. And the following question is like, are we responsible for the neighbor or not? Or do we want to assume our responsibilities for the other or not? I mean, like, I think the story of the Good Samaritan is a prime example for migration and for what we do. We can just see the issue, see the suffering brother and waiting, being sent back to Mexico, waiting, claiming at the door, and we just ignore them, pass them, like the priest, and is someone going to hear that language? I think that is, in some way, that is our challenge. Are we willing to see? Are we willing to hear? Are we willing to feel the pain? And are we willing to do something about it? And doing something about it means, well, keep educating ourselves. It means trying to foster collaborations. It means being really mindful. It means being involved politically and maybe pressuring our representatives who will have voice to change the laws, to kind of create a much more systemic change that is more just, that is more hopeful, that really looks for the other, that it's mindful of social justice, that is mindful of who we are, of the values that we hold as human beings.